Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to unpack a truly brilliant concept of strategic decision-making that silently governs, well, pretty much all of our daily interactions. Have you ever wondered why certain social situations always feel completely deadlocked? Or why rush hour traffic is consistently a total nightmare? Or even how animals in the wild just intuitively know how to compete for survival? The answer actually lies in the fascinating world of game theory, and specifically a mathematical concept that completely changed economics forever. So let's dive right into this. Section 1, the game of strategy and game theory basics.
Okay, so before we get into the heavy math, we really need to understand how game theorists actually view the world. Let's start by exploring a classic puzzle that they refer to as the stag hunt. Imagine you and a fellow hunter are out in the wilderness. If you and your partner can hunt a stag together for a massive feast, or you can choose to just hunt a rabbit by yourself for a much smaller meal, which do you choose? I mean, it sounds like a simple choice to go for the bigger meal, right? But the catch here is that hunting the stag requires total cooperation. Your success entirely depends on whether you trust the other person to make the exact same choice.
When we actually break down the numbers, we can see exactly how this plays out. If you both hunt the stag, you both get a great payoff of 2. But if you hunt the stag while your partner defects to go hunt a rabbit, you get absolutely 0, while they get to eat a rabbit worth 1 point. This makes it a highly tense coordination game, because your optimal strategy isn't just about what you want, it depends entirely on your expectation of what the other player is going to do.
So it really all boils down to expectation and trust. If you trust your partner, you go for the stag. But if you doubt them even for a second, you're actually better off guaranteeing yourself a rabbit. Our human intuition naturally struggles here, mainly because we have to predict what the other player will do before making our own move. We obviously need a mathematical way to solve this.
Moving on to Section 2, defining the Nash Equilibrium.
To really unlock this puzzle, we have to look at the formal framework that completely revolutionized how we predict multi-agent choices. And the journey to this framework? It took over a century. While Antoine-Augustin Cournot modeled oligopolies way back in 1838 and John von Neumann tackled competitive zero-sum games in 1944, their applications were, well, somewhat limited. It was actually the American mathematician John Forbes Nash Jr. in 1951 who provided the ultimate breakthrough, proving that equilibria can exist for literally any game with a finite set of actions.
And that brings us to the core concept of our explainer. A Nash equilibrium is formally defined as a situation where no player could gain more by changing their own strategy, holding all other players' strategies fixed. Basically, he proved that in games with a finite set of actions, an equilibrium point absolutely must exist, where each player's strategy is optimal against the choices of everyone else. You see, you aren't operating in a vacuum. Your best move is completely locked in by everyone else's best moves.
So the crucial takeaway here is this simple maxim. Knowing what I know now about your choice, would I change mine? Imagine every single player in a scenario pausing, looking at everyone else's locked-in decisions and asking themselves this very question. If everyone asks themselves this, and the answer for absolutely everyone is no, then congratulations, we've successfully found our equilibrium.
Section 3, finding the equilibrium in everyday mechanics.
Let's see how this builds when we apply it to something we all know. Imagine you're driving on a road against an oncoming car. You both have to quickly choose whether to swerve left or right to avoid a catastrophic crash. If you both swerve to your respective lefts, you pass safely. If you both swerve right, you pass safely. But if one swerves left and the other swerves right, you crash.
Now, what's really fascinating about the stable outcome is that if you both choose to drive on the left, resulting in a safe payoff of 10 for both of you, neither of you has any incentive to unilaterally change your strategy. I mean, think about it. If you suddenly decided to drive right while the other person stayed left, you'd crash, dropping your payoff to 0. Because neither of you wants to switch, choosing to drive left gives us a perfect, totally stable equilibrium. Now, that driving scenario relies on what we call a pure strategy, where a player always commits to one specific action, like always driving on the left. But Nash's true genius was proving that equilibria exist even when players randomly mix up their choices using what is called a mixed strategy. And that's basically just a probability distribution across different actions. To really understand mixed strategies, just look at a competitive game like matching pennies. In this game, player A wins a point if both coins match, while player B wins if the coins show different sides. If you map this out, there is actually no pure strategy equilibrium at all. If both play heads, player B is losing, so B is going to want to switch to tails.
But the moment B switches to tails, the coins are different, so player A is now losing and will want to switch to tails. Basically, someone always wants to switch their move.
So how do we ever find stability here? Well, the 50-50 mix is the hidden equilibrium. The absolute only way to reach a state where you have zero regrets about your strategy is to randomly play heads 50% of the time and tails 50% of the time. By making your actions perfectly unpredictable, you ensure your opponent cannot exploit your strategy, and neither of you will ever want to deviate from this randomized approach.
Section 4. Real-world applications, well beyond board games.
This brilliantly illustrates how a very simple grid can explain massive, complex systems all around us. Because this concept isn't just for board games or coin flips, it's an incredibly powerful lens for the real world. Game theorists actually use Nash Equilibrium to analyze hostile Cold War arms races. It's used in sports to map out soccer penalty kicks, where the kicker and the goalie are essentially playing a super high-stakes version of matching pennies. In evolutionary biology, researchers use it to see how genes compete for survival, where the payoff isn't money but gene transmission. And it's even used to analyze network traffic flow.
And speaking of traffic, this perfectly tees up a mind-blowing real-world application known as Brass's paradox. In traffic networks, drivers selfishly seeking the fastest route will settle into a Nash equilibrium that isn't actually socially optimal. The math actually proves that sometimes adding a brand new road to a city can perversely increase commute times for absolutely everyone. Why? Because the new equilibrium route creates a massive bottleneck that no single driver has an incentive to leave. Crazy, right?
Which brings us to Section 5, when the game breaks down thanks to flawed humans. Here's the catch. We humans, we are definitely not flawless calculating machines. For a Nash equilibrium to reliably occur in the real world, several incredibly strict conditions have to be met. The players must be flawlessly rational, execute their moves without any mistakes, and possess absolute intelligence. But honestly, the most demanding condition is the mind-bending requirement of common knowledge. It's not just that I know the rules, and you know the rules. It means I know that you know the rules, and you know that I know that you know, continuing infinitely.
And because of these impossibly strict rules, irrationality just completely shatters the equilibrium. If a player makes an accidental mistake or intentionally acts irrational, the whole system breaks down. Think of the classic game of chicken, where two cars drive head-on. The rational equilibrium involves someone eventually swerving. But if one driver suddenly rips off their steering wheel and throws it right out the window or throws their car into reverse, they destroy the common knowledge of rationality, and the mathematical equilibrium totally breaks down.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. Think about your daily commute, the dynamics in your workplace, or even your friend groups. Are you currently trapped in an inefficient Nash equilibrium? Are you making a choice simply because it's the best response to everyone else's stubborn choices? And more importantly, if you are stuck playing a strategy you just can't escape, how could you change the rules of the game itself? Thank you so much for exploring the Nash equilibrium with me today.